The sky above was painted in ash and smoke, thick gray clouds covering the world like a never-ending storm, and the sun hadn't shown itself since Commander Elias Trenholm crashed on the surface of Varnuk. His ship, once a proud vessel of exploration, was now a shattered skeleton of twisted metal, half buried under the black sands of the wasteland. He was the only known survivor. The rest of the crew either died in the crash or vanished into the endless, silent plains of ash, where even echoes were afraid to travel. Every step Elias took crunched under his boots as fine gray powder shifted beneath him. The air was thin but breathable, filled with the smell of iron and burnt earth. He had a rifle slung over his shoulder, half charged, and a survival pack on his back. Supplies were running low. Food was gone 2 days ago. Water would last a day, maybe less. But Elias kept walking because standing still meant dying. The planet was quiet, but not empty. He had seen shapes in the distance, things that moved on too many legs, things that didn't cast shadows, and once something that howled without making a sound. But he kept going, hoping for shelter, for a signal, for anything. He found the creature by accident. It was a small thing, at first no larger than a house cat, lying curled up at the edge of a cracked rock ridge. Its skin was pale gray with blue veins running beneath, and it looked almost hairless, except for a feathery line running down its spine. It had 4 limbs, but they were bent strangely, like it was made to crawl and leap more than walk. One of its back legs was bleeding. Not fresh blood, but old and dried, crusted over. Elias knelt slowly, carefully. He had seen enough predators pretending to be weak. But this one was trembling, its large amber eyes half shut, breathing slow and shallow. He raised his rifle slightly, uncertain, then lowered it again. Something about the creature reminded him of the injured birds he used to rescue as a child on Earth. Despite the danger, despite logic telling him to leave it, Elias took out a piece of cloth, wrapped its leg gently, and picked it up. It didn't resist. Back at the wreck of his drop pod, half buried under fallen trees and ash, Elias made a small shelter. It was barely more than a metal shell patched with thermal blankets and scrap. But it was warm and dry enough to keep the storms out. He placed the creature on an old padded seat, gave it water from a bottle cap, and watched it cautiously. For hours, it didn't move. Then, just before sleep, it chirped. Not like a bird, but like something trying to copy a sound it had never heard properly. That night, Elias gave it a name, Karoo. In the days that followed, Karoo slowly healed. Elias fed it scraps from old ration bars, and later insects he caught near the edge of the ash plains. The creature ate everything. Its eyes followed Elias's every move. It began to mimic sounds, not words, but tones. When Elias laughed once, bitterly, Karoo chirped in a rising pitch, like it was trying to copy the emotion. When something scratched near the shelter, Karoo hissed low and sharp, and the noise outside went silent. There was something unusual about the way it moved, not like an animal, more like a scout. It studied, learned, adapted, and it never tried to leave. Elias fixed up a broken drone from the pod, got its scanner working, and took Karoo with him on short trips to search for salvage. Every time they went out, the land seemed to shift subtly, rocks, never in the same place, trees that seemed to breathe when you weren't looking. One time, a shadow moved beneath the ground and tried to drag him under, but Karoo screamed a sound so piercing and unnatural that the earth predator recoiled and fled. Elias stared at Karoo in shock. The creature's eyes had gone dark for a moment, like something ancient was staring out of them. By the second week, Karoo had grown. Not just in size, but in confidence. It started walking beside Elias, climbing on his shoulder when it was tired, and even bringing back dead lizards it caught. Its body began to change, its skin toughened, its claws grew longer, and strange patterns appeared along its back that shimmered slightly under the moonlight. When it slept, it sometimes muttered sounds that didn't belong to any language Elias knew. And when Elias spoke softly to it, telling stories about Earth, about stars, about the sea, Karoo listened like it understood every word. There was no doubt now Karoo was intelligent. Not human, not even close, but sharp, aware, and fiercely loyal. One night, A group of native creatures attacked. Silent, skeletal beasts with limbs like blades and mouths that clicked instead of growled. Elias woke to find Karoo standing guard, its back arched, eyes glowing faintly. The fight was fast and brutal. Elias shot two, but Karoo tore through the rest with frightening speed. It moved like a shadow, biting through armored plates, dodging with inhuman grace. When it was over, Karoo stood over the final body, soaked in black blood, chest heaving. It looked at Elias not for approval, but as if asking, "Did I do well?" The next morning, Elias realized something that chilled him deeper than any cold wind. Karoo hadn't just grown into a protector. It had become a predator. A highly intelligent one. And Elias had raised it. But something else troubled him more. There were tracks in the ash. Not from beasts, and not from him. Humanoid prints, many of them. They circled the shelter once, then vanished. Someone or something had been watching. And when Elias looked at Karoo, it was already staring toward the horizon, as if it sensed what was coming. The ash winds were stronger now, rising in sudden gusts that could tear thin metal like paper, and Elias had learned to read the sky by the taste of dust on his tongue. Varnock was not just dangerous, it was alive in a quiet, watching way, and over time Elias had stopped asking if he was being hunted and started wondering how long the planet would let him survive. But through it all, Karoo remained by his side, no longer the weak thing he had rescued, but something far more evolved, stronger, sharper, and faster than anything Elias had seen before. The creature grew rapidly, its limbs now powerful enough to scale broken trees in seconds, its tail used for balance like a trained fighter, and its claws could dig through the hull of a broken ship. More than that, Karoo seemed to learn from everything how to track, how to ambush, even how to read Elias's moods. When Elias was angry, Karoo kept its distance. When Elias was quiet, Karoo stayed close, sometimes resting its head near his leg like a dog from Earth, but its glowing amber eyes reminded Elias constantly that this was no pet. This was a predator in the making, and every day it seemed less like a creature and more like a warrior in disguise. They trained together without meaning to. When Elias hunted, Karoo copied. When Elias set traps, Karoo improved them. And when they were attacked by a pack of spine lizards, low-slung creatures with bone armor and venomous jaws, it was Karoo who led the charge, not Elias. The battle was chaos, fangs, and gunfire, blood soaking the ash. Elias fought to stay alive, but when he turned to check on Karoo, he saw the young creature leap onto the largest beast, biting deep into its eye, tearing out its throat with precision far beyond instinct. It wasn't just survival, it was strategy. That night, as Elias cleaned his wounds, he noticed Karoo staring at the fire. Not like an animal amazed by light, but like something trying to remember it. The fire reflected in Karoo's eyes, and for the first time, Elias whispered out loud, "What are you becoming?" But Karoo didn't answer, just tilted its head as if wondering the same thing. Word began to spread among the tribes in the deep jungles beyond the ash fields. Elias didn't know it yet, but his actions had been seen. Unknown to him, scouts from a native tribe, the Varnaki, had witnessed his survival from the treetops, using carved lenses and sky sensors. They saw a lone human with a creature unlike any other, a shadow beast that followed his every move, and they called him a ghost warrior. Stories were told around fires of a man from the stars who walked with death beside him, of a hunter who could call down fire, and a beast that could vanish into ash and reappear behind you. The legend grew faster than the truth, and soon even the tribe's elders were questioning if this guy ghost was a threat or a sign. Far from their village, Princess Sarah trained with her warriors, determined to prove herself before the trial hunt. She had no interest in stories. She believed in strength, in tradition, in facing danger head-on. But fate doesn't care about belief. One day, while tracking a massive beast through the outer edges of the wasteland, Sarah's party was ambushed by a swarm of bone worms, giant armored creatures that moved through the sand like water, striking with slicing jaws. Her guards fell one by one, and she found herself alone, bleeding, trapped under a broken tree limb, as the creatures circled her slowly, waiting. That's when the wind shifted and fire cracked across the ash. A gunshot echoed like thunder. A second. A third. Then came the roar, not from any weapon, but from something alive. Something furious. Karoo! The creature charged from the fog like a shadow set on fire, tearing through the worms with deadly speed. And behind it, Elias emerged, rifle steady, eyes locked, every move deliberate. Together, they fought like a machine with two hearts. Sarah, shocked and breathless, watched them move, how the creature listened to the human's gestures without words, how it positioned itself to protect, how the man didn't lead it, but worked with it. When the last worm fell, Karoo stood over its body and let out a howl that echoed across the wasteland. Sarah had heard warriors roar before, but this was different. This was a creature declaring, "I have killed, and I will kill again." Elias helped her up without asking who she was, gave her water, and said nothing else. He wasn't interested in thanks. He just moved on. But Sarah could not move. She stared at Karoo, not with fear, but with awe. Whatever this creature was, it had once been helpless, small, weak. And now it was terrifying. And worse, it listened to a human. When she returned to her tribe, limping and covered in blood, her elders demanded answers. She told them of the man in the ash, the predator at his side, and the way they moved as one. The tribe fell silent. One elder finally spoke. "If he commands that beast, then perhaps he commands fate." And just like that, the council made their decision, one Sarah never expected. To become queen, she would not only have to survive the trial hunt, she would have to bring the beast back, or lose her right to rule. The jungle on the edge of the ash plains was a different kind of danger, alive in a louder way, thick with green vines, massive roots, and the constant cries of creatures hiding in the shadows, watching with bright, silent eyes. The air was humid, full of the scent of rot and flowers that didn't belong together, and everything seemed to breathe with quiet warning. Princess Sarah moved through it like a trained blade, focused, steady, but restless. The trial hunt was not just a tradition, it was law. Each heir to the Varnaki throne had to prove they could protect the tribe by surviving the jungle alone, killing a worthy beast, and returning with its heart. She had trained for years for this moment, her hands calloused from weapons, her arms scarred from lessons she chose never to avoid. But this hunt was different. The elders had changed the rules. She was no longer just hunting a wild beast. She was hunting a myth, the ghost warrior and his predator. Sarah wasn't afraid of danger. She had faced it many times, but this task felt wrong in her bones. She had seen the way the creature Karoo fought. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't something you could chase down, trap, or kill like a beast. And the human, Elias, he had barely spoken during their brief meeting, but the way he moved, the way the predator followed him, obeyed him, protected him, it stayed in her mind. It didn't make sense. Humans were not gods. They were flesh and blood like anyone else. But there was something different in him. Something quiet and sharp and powerful, like a storm building behind still skies. For 3 days, she tracked their path through the wilderness, using broken branches, faded footprints, and strange claw marks that didn't match anything in the Varnaki records. Sometimes she found signs of battles, twisted corpses of creatures half-eaten, or torn apart with surgical precision. No human alone could have done that. No beast either. But together, that was the part that made her question everything. On the 4th day, she finally saw them. She had climbed a tall root cliff to scout ahead, and through the mist below, she spotted a flickering fire in a hollow. Elias was tending to a small cooking pot over the flame. Karoo lay beside him, eyes half closed, but awake, always awake. The way Karoo lay close, relaxed but alert, reminded Sarah of stories about ancient royal guards, beasts sworn to protect kings until death. She watched in silence, hidden, but Karoo's head suddenly turned. Its eyes locked on her hiding spot instantly. It hadn't even moved its ears. Elias didn't glance up, but his hand shifted slightly toward his weapon. Sarah stood up from her cover slowly and raised her hands. No threat, no bow, no blade. Elias looked at her then, finally calm as stone. He didn't seem surprised to see her. "You followed us," he said. His voice was even, not cold, just tired. I have to, she replied. The tribe they demand I bring you back. Or her. She nodded toward Karoo, who had now stood and was staring at her with intense, almost human focus. And if I say no? Elias asked. Then I lose everything, she said simply. There was no plea in her voice, no begging, only truth. Silence passed between them like a thin blade. Elias stood, dusted off his hands, and looked at Karoo. The creature walked towards Sarah, slow and low, almost curious. Its face inches from hers, breath warm and sharp. It tilted its head as if trying to measure her soul. Sarah didn't flinch. That mattered. After a long pause, Karoo growled once, not in threat, but as a sound of interest, and returned to Elias's side. Elias gave her a long, unreadable look. You're not ready for her, he said quietly, then turned and walked away. But Sarah followed. She didn't ask for help. She didn't beg for mercy. She just walked beside them, determined not to turn back. For days, they moved through the jungle together, and slowly, a strange rhythm formed. Elias said little, Karoo watched everything, and Sarah tried to understand the bond they shared. She watched how Elias never commanded Karoo, but rather offered silent signals, small gestures, glances, and Karoo responded like they shared a secret language. At night, she heard Karoo make strange sounds, whispers that mimicked human words not quite correctly. She saw the creature mimic fire building, sharpen its claws on tools, even copy Elias's posture. Karoo wasn't learning like an animal. It was learning like a student. Something old and dangerous was growing inside it, and Sarah understood now why the tribe feared it. But she also began to understand something more dangerous. They weren't just afraid of Karoo. They were afraid of the human who made Karoo possible. Sarah began to question everything she'd been taught about beasts, about power, about control. And still, Elias refused to give her what she had come for. Until, on the seventh night, as they camped near the edge of a canyon glowing faintly with strange blue moss, a creature from the deep jungle found them. It was massive, four-legged, armored like stone, with eyes like burning coal and a roar that cracked the trees. Sarah reached for her weapon, but it was too fast, charging straight for her. In that moment, she didn't cry for help. She stood her ground. But before the beast could strike, Karoo was there faster than thought, leaping, shrieking a high-pitched call that made the monster stagger. Elias fired once, then again, distracting it, and Sarah slashed at its legs as it stumbled. Together, all three of them brought the beast down, man, creature, and princess. Breathing hard, covered in sweat and blood, Sarah looked at Karoo as it stood beside her now, not just Elias's beast, but something else. Something that had accepted her. Elias looked at them both and finally nodded. Maybe, just maybe, you are ready. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The tribe had sent her to bring back the predator. What they would never expect is that the predator had chosen her. The return journey to the Varnaki tribe was quiet, but every step hummed with tension. Princess Sarah walked at the front now, not as a hunter who had captured a prize, but as someone changed, someone uncertain whether she was bringing back salvation or something far more dangerous. Elias walked beside her, silent, his face unreadable beneath a hood of dust-stained cloth, and Karoo moved just behind, never straying far from either of them. The once small creature now towered over most men, sleek and muscled, but still eerily quiet in its steps, moving like a shadow with golden eyes. They passed through deep jungle, crossing broken bridges of root and stone, through mists that whispered things in forgotten tongues. Sarah noticed how the forest itself seemed to quiet as they passed, how even the birds grew still when Karoo looked toward them. It wasn't fear, it was respect, the kind earned only by something that had killed things older than memory. As they neared the edge of her homeland, firelight flickered through the trees and distant drums began to sound signals to the tribe that the hunt had returned. But this was no victory march. Elias paused at the tree line and stared ahead at the gathering Varnaki warriors, all painted in war mud, faces grim, spears raised. They don't want peace, he said, his voice low. They want to test me. Sarah didn't deny it. The elders had sent her out expecting either her death or the beast's return in chains, not this a living legend walking beside her, whole and unchained. "They're afraid," she said. Elias glanced down at Carew, who let out a low growl, sensing the tension rising. "They should be," he replied. When they stepped out of the jungle, the tribe didn't cheer. They formed a circle around the clearing, silent, eyes wide with caution. Even the warriors who had mocked the story of the ghost warrior now gripped their weapons tighter, uncertain. The High Elder stepped forward, robes of woven leaves and bone, and raised his staff. "You bring the creature back," he said to Sarah. "But you do not command it. You stand beside it." "Yes," she answered firmly. "Because it chose to stand beside me." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but the elder's face remained hard. His gaze shifted to Elias. "What is it you want, Skyman? You tame what should not be tamed. You create a monster and walk as if it is a pet." Elias looked past the elder, toward the fire pits and carved stones of the Varnaki village, and then back to the watching faces. "Carew is not a pet," he said quietly. "She's not a monster either. But what you call a monster, what you fear is your own limit. You fear what she represents, that something not born of your tribe, not shaped by your laws, could be greater than you." His words hit like thrown stones. Many flinched, some growled. A few warriors stepped forward with blades drawn, but Carew moved between them like a blur, snarling, fangs bared. Not attacking warning. The circle backed off instantly. The elder raised his hand to calm the rising voices. "Then tell us, ghost warrior, what should we do with a creature like this? Bow to it? Worship it? Lock it away?" Elias looked at Sarah, then to Carew. "You do not need to do any of those things. But listen carefully. She's only the first." That made the elder pause. "First?" Elias nodded. "There are more like her. I found Carew as a cub, alone, abandoned, but something made her. Something old. Something powerful. A species that is growing again, learning again. And they will not all be kind. If you treat them like animals, they will remind you that they are not. If you hunt them, they will learn to hunt you better." Silence spread like cold water over the tribe. Even the fire seemed to crackle less loudly. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear. "This trial was supposed to test my strength. But what I've learned is that strength isn't about killing the unknown, it's about understanding it. This creature has more loyalty, more honor than many warriors I have trained beside. I will not bring her in chains. I will walk with her." For a moment, no one moved. Then the elder struck his staff on the ground once. "So be it," he said, voice heavy. "But understand this, if she ever turns on us, if she becomes a threat," Elias cut in, sharp, "then it means you turned first." The elder's eyes met his, and something passed between them. Not agreement, not peace, but understanding. That night, Elias stood alone near the edge of the camp, staring up at the stars peeking through the clouds. Carew sat beside him, silent. Sarah approached slowly. "You could have left us," she said. "Why stay?" Elias didn't look at her. "Because she's not done growing. And neither are they," he said, nodding toward the jungle. "Something's coming. The kind of war no one's ready for." Sarah frowned. "What kind of war?" Elias turned then, eyes dark. "The kind where the monsters don't come from outside. They come from the ones who think they're in control." Carew's eyes gleamed in the firelight, and far in the jungle, something echoed the sound of her howl. The jungle was no longer silent. In the days that followed Elias and Carew's arrival at the Varnaki village, the trees whispered louder, and the creatures that once kept their distance began moving in unnatural patterns, circling, watching, waiting. The scouts who ventured out started to return with stories too strange to ignore. Old nests burned to ash, trees stripped of bark by something huge and worse, bones. Piles of them, clean and bleached, shaped like warnings at the borders of Varnaki land. The elders grew restless, and the warriors sharpened their spears, but Elias already knew. He had felt it in the air, heard it in the silence between Carew's growls. The others were coming. Not like Carew, not raised with care, not grown with a bond, but raw, wild, perfect predators born from the same ancient bloodline. And they were not coming in peace. One night, as the moon burned red above the treetops, the first of them arrived. 6 of them bigger than Karoo, twice her size, their scales like black stone and their eyes glowing with primal hunger. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They just attacked. The village erupted into chaos. Fire spread through the wooden walls, screams filled the sky, and warriors fell like leaves in a storm. The predators moved as one, fast and brutal, cutting through defenses like they were made of paper. Elias fought alongside Sarah and her soldiers, but he knew they were losing. And Karoo didn't fight. She stood still in the center of the village, her eyes locked with the largest of the beasts, something deep and unspoken passing between them. It wasn't just a meeting, it was a memory, a call, a choice. The massive creature let out a low rumble, stepping forward, not to strike but to summon. It was offering her a place at their side. Karoo looked at Elias, then back at the beast. Her body tensed. Her tail flicked. The village burned behind her. And then, without warning, she let out a shriek that split the sky, loud, fierce, filled with something more than rage. She lunged, not toward Elias, not away but straight at the largest predator, claws out, eyes full of fury. The battle that followed was like thunder crashing into earth. Karoo fought like something possessed, faster and more savage than Elias had ever seen. She didn't just fight to kill, she fought to prove something, to reject something. And when it was done, when the beast lay dead beneath her, throat torn, body broken, the others paused. They looked at her, looked at Elias, and slowly, one by one, they backed away. Not in fear, in recognition. They didn't understand why she had chosen this human, but they saw now that she had, and to fight her again would be death. The jungle swallowed them once more, and the night grew quiet. The village was wounded, broken, but alive. Sarah stood beside Elias, blood on her blade, eyes wide with awe. "She chose you," she whispered. Elias looked at Karoo, who now limped slightly, body scarred, but head high. "No," he said softly. "She chose herself." In the days that followed, the village rebuilt. The story of the battle spread far beyond the Varnaki lands of a predator raised by a human, of loyalty forged not by chains but by respect. Sarah was crowned not just because of her survival, but because she understood what no elder could, that strength without understanding was just destruction. And Elias, he didn't stay. He walked into the jungle one morning with Karoo at his side. No goodbye, no promise to return. Some say he went searching for others like her, hoping to teach them before it was too late. Others say he vanished into legend, the ghost warrior who walked beside death and taught it how to love. But deep in the ash fields, where it all began, a single trail of clawed footprints still remains, reminding all who passed that once. A tiny creature was raised not to obey, not to destroy, but to choose. And when the time came, she chose to protect the world that had once feared her.